I never thought I'd be writing my life story wrapped in numbers, bills, bank statements, rent notices, and paycheck stubs. But here I am, 26 years old, and it feels like I'm swimming in a sea of expenses that keep rising faster than I can breathe, let alone float. This financial pressure isn't just a background noise anymore, it's the soundtrack of my days, the weight on my chest when I wake up and the last thing I feel before I fall asleep. I remember when I first got my full-time job, fresh out of college with a degree that promised opportunity and a future. Back then, my dreams were vivid and loud: traveling, maybe a small apartment with plants, weekend brunches with friends, saving for a car. But those dreams slowly quieted as reality crept in, creeping like an unwelcome shadow that stretched longer with each passing month. The cost of living today feels like an ever-growing beast that no paycheck can tame. Rent is the biggest monster. Every year, it seems to spike a little more, while my salary barely inches forward. I live in a tiny, one-bedroom place that barely fits all my stuff, and sometimes I wonder if I'm just paying to sleep in someone else's money. Utilities, groceries, phone bills, transportation, they all add up, and it feels like a funnel with no bottom. The money comes in, and it's immediately swallowed by these necessary costs. There's nothing left over to save or splurge or dream. This trap, the one I feel stuck in, it's like being on a treadmill that speeds up every time I try to slow down or jump off. I cut back on anything that's not essential, eating out is rare, coffee shops are a treat I allow maybe once a month, and buying new clothes feels like a luxury I can't justify. Even hobbies have to be reconsidered. The guitar gathering dust in the corner reminds me of a passion I can't afford to nurture because, well, time and money are tight. Emotionally, it's exhausting. It's hard to explain this kind of stress to someone who hasn't lived it. You try to stay optimistic, but it creeps into your thoughts constantly: what if I lose my job? What if an unexpected bill comes? Sometimes, anxiety sneaks in like an uninvited guest, making me doubt my choices and my future. It's frustrating because it feels like no matter how hard I work, it's never enough. I'm not just tired physically, I'm drained emotionally. The fear of falling behind never really leaves. I find myself thinking a lot about the system I'm caught in. The economy, the job market, inflation, it all feels like an uphill battle where the rules keep changing and the deck is stacked against people like me trying to build a stable life. There's a constant pressure to keep up, but the goalposts move farther away every day. Sometimes I feel invisible, like my struggle is just a tiny blip in a massive machine that doesn't notice or care about my hardship. To cope, I try to focus on small wins. I track my expenses obsessively, not because I enjoy it, but because I have to. I've learned to cook simple meals that stretch my grocery budget and discovered the small joy of library books and free online courses. I talk to friends, even though many of them are in the same boat. Sometimes, just knowing someone else understands helps, even if it doesn't fix the problem. I also hold on to hope, fragile though it is. I dream of a day when I'm not anxious about rent or bills, when I can take a weekend trip without checking the bank balance 100 times. I want to save for a home, maybe even start a family one day. But those dreams feel like distant stars, beautiful, but light years away. Sometimes I worry that postponing these milestones will stretch indefinitely, and the life I imagined will become a story I tell, not one I live. Still, I remind myself that this chapter doesn't have to be the whole story. I'm learning resilience and patience, and I'm trying to believe that change is possible. Maybe it means building skills, seeking better opportunities, or advocating for myself more fiercely. Maybe it means accepting that life right now is a struggle, but it won't always be. I cling to that belief because, without it, the pressure would be unbearable. So, this is my reality, a daily balancing act between survival and hope, exhaustion and small moments of joy, frustration and determination. The financial pressure feels like a cage, but I'm still searching for the key, even if it takes time. I'm still dreaming, still pushing, still hoping that one day, I'll tell a different story. Because despite everything, I want to believe that a better future isn't just a dream postponed, it's a promise waiting to be fulfilled. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. It's strange how money can feel like both a constant shadow and an invisible cage all at once. Every morning, I wake up with a knot in my stomach, not because I'm facing some grand disaster, but because I know the same old pressures are waiting for me, relentless and unforgiving. I'm 27, living in a city that seems to get more expensive every time I blink. Somehow, the cost of rent, groceries, bills, and the little things that make life bearable keep climbing, while my paycheck stays stubbornly flat. It's like running on a treadmill that's speeding up, but my legs just don't have the strength to keep pace. I used to believe that if I worked hard enough, put in extra hours, took on side gigs, learned new skills, I'd eventually break free from this financial suffocation. But the truth is harsher. I'm trapped in a system where expenses grow faster than income, and that gap is swallowing every bit of hope I had. It's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet, it's a feeling, a slow erosion of security and peace that creeps in unnoticed until one day, it's all you can think about. Each morning, my first act after shutting off the alarm is to check my bank app. It's a ritual soaked in dread. I scan the numbers, calculate what's left after bills are due, and mentally map out what I can afford to spend on food, transport, and the rare treat I try to give myself. Spoiler, it's never enough. There are weeks when I skip meals or opt for the cheapest, most uninspired options just to make ends meet. Fresh fruits and vegetables become luxuries, and eating out is a distant memory. I live in a small apartment I can barely afford, in a neighborhood that's slowly gentrifying. The rent alone eats up more than half of my monthly income. Sometimes I catch myself dreaming about a place with a little more space, a balcony, a kitchen I don't dread using, but those dreams feel naive now. Every time rent increases, it's like a punch in the gut, and I have to scramble again, cutting back on essentials or working more hours. My social life has taken a hit too. Friends invite me out, but I often say no because the cost adds up. I miss that connection, but I don't want to explain the invisible burden I carry. The emotional weight of this financial pressure is exhausting. It's not just stress, it's a constant background hum of anxiety that colors everything. I lie awake at night wondering how long I can keep this up. Am I just delaying the inevitable? Will I ever catch a break, or am I destined to be stuck in this cycle? It's hard to explain this feeling to people who don't live it, the mix of shame and frustration, the fear that you're failing at adulting because you can't make the numbers work. I cope by trying to find small pockets of joy and control. I've started journaling, pouring out my fears and hopes onto the page. It helps me feel less alone, less overwhelmed by the monotony of surviving paycheck to paycheck. Sometimes I escape into books or music, letting stories transport me away from my cramped apartment and the constant pressure. I also keep reminding myself that I'm not defined by my bank balance, even if it often feels like that. But there's a bitterness too, because every day I have to postpone dreams that once seemed so simple. Going back to school to finish my degree, saving for a trip, investing in a hobby that could one day turn into something more. Instead, I patch together freelance gigs or take on extra shifts, all just to keep the lights on. It's a kind of survival mode that's exhausting in its own right. Still, I hold on to hope. Hope that one day the system will shift, that I'll find a better paying job, that the cost of living will stabilize or even go down. Hope that I'll have the freedom to make choices that aren't dictated solely by money. It's a fragile hope, often threatened by the daily grind, but it's all I have. Talking about this out loud, even here, makes me realize how many people must feel the same way, caught in a maze with no clear exit, weighed down by invisible chains. It's not just about dollars and cents, it's about dignity, about the quiet desperation of trying to build a life when the odds are stacked against you. So, this is my story, not of triumph, but of endurance. A story of navigating a world where the cost of living is a relentless tide, and the shoreline of stability seems further away every day. Yet, somewhere beneath the exhaustion and fear, a flicker of something stubbornly bright remains, the belief that I deserve more than just survival, that maybe, just maybe, better days are ahead. I never thought money would weigh on me this much. Growing up, I heard people talk about budgets and bills, but it always felt like a distant thing, something adults had to deal with, not me. Now, in my mid-20s, it's a constant shadow that follows me everywhere, shaping every choice I make, every hope I hold on to, and sometimes, every ounce of my energy. The thing is, it's not like I'm living beyond my means. I work hard. I've got a steady job, sometimes two, but no matter how many hours I put in, the numbers never add up the way they should. Rent climbs every year, groceries seem to cost more every time I shop, and bills like utilities and insurance just keep creeping up. I keep telling myself it's just inflation, that everyone's in the same boat. But it doesn't feel like it when my paycheck stretches thinner than the month ahead. Every morning starts with the same question in my head: how am I going to get through this month? I wake up early, sometimes before my alarm, thinking about the overdue phone bill or the credit card minimum payment I can barely cover. I lie in bed for a moment, feeling the weight settle in my chest. It's a heavy, dull ache, this pressure. It's not panic exactly, but it's close, a slow, persistent anxiety that hums in the background of everything I do. The system feels rigged, honestly. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up every time I think I'm catching up. No matter how many extra shifts I pick up, or how many times I skip going out with friends to save a few bucks, expenses surge faster than my income. I remember the last time I got a raise, it was a meager bump that barely covered a single grocery trip more than before. And then rent went up by $100 the next month. It's like being trapped in a loop where every step forward is swallowed by the ground beneath you. It's exhausting, both physically and mentally. I'm drained by the constant calculations. Should I buy the cheaper brand? Can I wait until next week to fix my phone screen? Do I really need the bus pass this month, or can I walk even if it's miles away? These decisions aren't just practical anymore, they're survival tactics. I've become so careful that I dread receiving any mail or emails with bills or notices. Each one is a mini crisis. Emotionally, it's isolating too. I want to talk about it, but it feels like no one really understands. Some friends say, just get a better job, as if that's simple or even possible when the job market feels so competitive and salaries stagnant. Others don't notice because they're not living paycheck to paycheck like I am. I sometimes feel ashamed to admit how tight things are, as if I'm failing somehow because I can't make it work. The truth is, it's not about failure, it's about a system that's just too expensive for people like me to live in without sinking. I cope by trying to find small pockets of peace. I walk in the park sometimes, just to clear my head. I read books from the library instead of buying them. And I cling to routines that make me feel grounded, cooking a simple meal, calling my family even when I don't have much to say, or writing in my journal at night. These small acts are anchors when everything else feels unstable. But dreams, those are the hardest part. I had dreams once, traveling, going back to school for a degree I loved, maybe even saving enough to buy a small place of my own someday. Now, those dreams feel like luxuries I can't afford to think about. I've had to postpone going back to school because I can't take on more debt. Vacations are out of the question because every dollar needs to cover essentials. The idea of owning a home seems like a cruel joke when rent consumes so much of my paycheck. Still, I hold on to hope in the quiet moments. I imagine a future where my income grows enough to keep pace with the cost of living, where I'm not always scrambling or stressed. I think about a day when I can say yes to plans with friends without immediately calculating the cost afterward. Sometimes, late at night, I dream about changing my career, finding something more fulfilling that also pays better, but that feels like a distant hope because retraining takes money and time I don't have. I'm learning to be honest with myself about what's real and what's possible. I'm learning to forgive myself for the dreams I have to delay and the nights I feel defeated. It's not easy living in this pressure cooker, but I'm still here, still fighting. Maybe that's enough for now. The system might keep spinning faster than I can run, but I'm holding on. And every day I make it through, despite the odds, feels like a small victory. I never thought I'd be writing about this, about the way money can feel like a relentless storm you can't outrun, no matter how fast you run or how hard you try to build a shelter. But here I am, sitting at my tiny kitchen table, staring at the numbers on my bank app, trying to make sense of it all. The math never adds up. The bills keep piling higher, and my paycheck feels like a trickle against a tidal wave. It's this constant pressure, a weight on my chest I can't shake off, that's become the backdrop to my everyday. I'm 26, and when I graduated college, I was full of hope. I thought I had a plan, get a steady job, maybe move to a nicer apartment someday, start saving for a trip or a car. But the world I stepped into was nothing like the one I imagined. Inflation was already creeping up, rents skyrocketing, and the job market? Competitive doesn't even begin to cover it. I landed a decent job in marketing, but the salary barely covers rent and essentials, let alone anything extra. Every month feels like a juggling act. Rent, utilities, groceries, phone bill, transit, and then the little things that sneak in, like a broken toaster or a friend's birthday dinner I can't skip. Each expense chips away at what little I have left, leaving me anxious and exhausted. I've learned to live by spreadsheets, budget apps, and constant mental math. But no matter how tight I pull the belt holes seem to move further away. Some days, I feel like I'm trapped in a system designed to keep people like me running in place. Prices climb like they're in a race to the sky, but wages stay almost frozen. It's a cruel imbalance. The harder I work, the more I feel stuck. Every raise or bonus just seems to vanish into the next bill. There's no room for mistakes, no safety net. If I lose this job, I don't even want to think about what that would mean. This pressure isn't just financial, it's emotional and mental. I lie awake at night calculating how long I can keep this up. I worry about the future, the dream of owning a home feels like a distant, fading star. I postponed plans for grad school, postponed saving for retirement, and postponed even little joys like traveling or upgrading my laptop. It's hard to explain this kind of chronic uncertainty to anyone who's never lived it. It's not just being poor, it's the constant mental drain of feeling like you're falling behind, no matter how hard you chase. I've had to cut corners in ways I never imagined. Cooking from scratch has become a survival skill. I rarely go out anymore. Social events? I RSVP with a polite maybe, knowing I probably can't afford the coffee or drinks afterward. The shame creeps in, I'm the one who always declines invitations, the one who can't chip in when friends plan trips or dinners. It's isolating. I've felt that sting of judgment, subtle or not, from others who don't understand why I can't just get it together. To cope, I've leaned into small things. I find moments of calm in evening walks, podcasts, or writing in a journal. I talk to close friends who understand, even if their lives aren't the same. I remind myself that this is a phase, even if it feels permanent. Sometimes I daydream about a life where money isn't the shadow that follows me everywhere, where I can breathe without counting every penny, where I can actually save for something bigger than next month's bills. But those dreams feel fragile. Hope feels like a quiet whisper I have to protect fiercely. I know the system isn't broken just for me, it's a problem that runs deep in society. Sometimes I get angry about it. Other times, I just feel tired, like I'm climbing a mountain with no peak in sight. Still, I keep going because giving up isn't an option. I remind myself that progress, even slow progress, is still progress. Maybe someday, with enough persistence and a bit of luck, I'll get to a place where financial pressure doesn't dictate every choice I make. For now, I take it one day at a time, holding on to the hope that the storm will pass, and I'll find a clear sky again. This is my story, not a story of defeat, but of quiet endurance. A reminder that behind every paycheck, every bill, and every choice is a person doing their best to survive and dream, even when the odds feel stacked against them. I never thought money would control my life the way it does now. It sneaks into every corner of my day, from the moment I wake up, weighing on my mind like a silent alarm. Even the smallest decisions have become puzzles with no easy answers. Should I buy coffee or skip it? Can I afford to take the bus or do I have to walk, even if it means being late? Every choice feels like a compromise, and it wears me down. I'm 26, working full-time, juggling 2 part-time gigs on the side just to keep afloat. I graduated with a degree I hoped would open doors, but those doors seem locked tight. My income barely inches forward while rent, groceries, and bills climb relentlessly. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. The faster I run, the further behind I fall. This constant financial pressure doesn't just mess with my bank account, it gnaws at my confidence and peace of mind. Some mornings, I wake up and the first thing I think is, how am I going to make it through this month? I check my bank app, hoping for some miracle, only to see the same stubbornly low balance staring back. I've become an expert at budgeting, clipping coupons, hunting for sales, and rationing every meal. But it's exhausting. So much of my energy is spent just trying to hold things together that I have little left for anything else. There's this deep frustration that comes from feeling stuck. I see people around me, friends, family, even strangers, making plans, buying homes, traveling, investing in their futures. Meanwhile, I'm caught in this loop where expenses rise faster than I can earn. Rent went up again last month, forcing me to cut back on something else. This time, it was my phone plan. I switched to a cheaper carrier with worse coverage, but at least I saved a few bucks. Still, it feels like a drop in an ocean of bills. I want to believe things will get better. I try to remind myself that this phase is temporary, but the system feels rigged. The more I struggle, the more the cost of living seems to spike, like the economy is designed to keep people like me just barely surviving. It's hard not to feel trapped when every raise I get barely offsets inflation, and unexpected expenses, a medical bill, a broken phone, car repairs, can throw me into a spiral. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. On good days, I tell myself that persistence and hard work will pay off. On bad days, I feel crushed by the weight of it all. The uncertainty breeds anxiety, and some nights I lie awake wondering if I'll ever be free of this pressure. It's a mix of hope and fear, like walking a tightrope without a safety net. I've had to postpone so many dreams. I wanted to travel, see the world, experience new cultures. I dreamed of moving into my own place, decorating it with things that felt like me, not just bare essentials. I thought about going back to school for a master's degree to increase my chances of a better job. But each of those dreams carries a price tag I can't pay right now, and so they remain distant, flickering lights just out of reach. Sometimes, I feel guilty. Guilty for wanting more, for not being grateful enough for what I have. I remind myself that I'm lucky to have work, to have shelter, but it's hard to shake the feeling that I'm missing out on life. The stress seeps into my relationships too. Friends invite me out, but I often say no because I don't want to spend money I don't have. I don't want them to know how tight things really are. The isolation creeps in slowly, like a shadow. Still, I try to cope. I find small moments of joy where I can, an evening walk, a good book borrowed from the library, a homemade meal that tastes like a tiny victory. I talk openly with a few trusted friends about the struggle, and that honesty helps. I'm learning to celebrate the small wins, paying off a credit card, saving a little bit each paycheck, even if it feels like just pennies. These small wins remind me I'm not powerless. There's also a stubborn hope inside me. I believe that if I keep pushing, keep learning, and keep searching for better opportunities, things will change. I'm trying to build skills, take online courses, network, and keep an eye out for any chance to improve my situation. But it's hard to balance that ambition with the daily grind, the constant financial stress pulling me down. Sometimes, I fantasize about what freedom would feel like, the freedom to spend without counting, to say yes to opportunities without hesitation, to stop living paycheck to paycheck. I imagine waking up without that heavy knot in my stomach, without the exhaustion that comes from carrying this invisible burden every day. Writing this down, being this honest, it's scary but also freeing. I want people to understand that behind the smiling faces and busy schedules, many of us are fighting silent battles. The economy isn't just numbers and graphs, it's real lives shaped and sometimes broken by forces beyond our control. I don't have all the answers. I'm still figuring things out, navigating this maze. But if there's one thing I know, it's that hope is stubborn. Despite the wait, despite the setbacks, I'm holding on to that hope. Because without it, what else is there? For now, I'll keep taking one day at a time, one small step forward, holding on to the dream that one day, this pressure will ease, and I'll finally breathe a little easier. It's like trying to run a race where the finish line keeps moving farther away, faster than I can keep up. Every month I tell myself, this time, I'll manage better, but the numbers don't lie. The rent, groceries, utility bills, they all creep up, inch by inch, while my paycheck feels stuck in a loop, almost as if frozen in place. I'm 27, living in a city that's supposed to be full of opportunity, but the reality feels more like a trap. I remember when I first moved out on my own, right after college. I was so proud, excited, even. I had a decent job lined up, a little apartment, and the world felt open. I thought if I just worked hard, saved a little, maybe pursued a few side gigs, I could build a solid life. But that was before the inflation kicked in full force, before every paycheck started to stretch thinner. I quickly realized my decent salary wasn't decent enough. I wasn't just managing, I was barely scraping by. Every morning I wake up and check my bank account. It's become a ritual filled with dread. I know that balance all too well, sometimes barely enough to cover essentials, sometimes not even that. It's not just about the money, it's what the money controls. The freedom to say yes to a night out, to buy fresh produce instead of canned beans, to replace a worn-out jacket before winter hits. These are small luxuries that now feel like distant dreams. There's this constant pressure, this gnawing anxiety that sits on my chest. It's exhausting. I try to keep it together in front of friends and family, but inside, I'm scrambling. I'm scared of what happens if something breaks down, the car, the fridge, my phone. Repairs mean borrowing money, and borrowing means interest, which means even less breathing room. The weight of debt isn't just numbers, it's a heavy chain wrapped tight around my spirit. Making decisions has turned into a balancing act. Should I buy groceries or pay the phone bill? Should I keep the heat on or let myself shiver through the night to save a few bucks? These aren't questions anyone should have to answer in a place that calls itself a developed country, but here I am, living them daily. The mental load of constantly calculating, prioritizing, and sacrificing wears me down more than I ever expected. My emotional well-being has taken a hit. I find myself more withdrawn, less hopeful. It's hard to be optimistic when the system seems designed against you. Social media doesn't help, everyone's showcasing shiny lives, vacations, new cars, while I scroll through on my phone, wondering how they do it. Sometimes, it feels like I'm invisible, stuck in this undercurrent of struggle that no one really talks about openly. I cope the best I can. I find solace in small things, a good book borrowed from the library, a quiet walk in the park, cooking a simple meal that reminds me of home. These moments are tiny islands of calm in an ocean of stress. I also try to stay connected with friends who understand the grind, those of us juggling multiple jobs, shifting schedules, and relentless bills. We share tips, offer encouragement, and sometimes just vent. It helps to know I'm not alone, even if it doesn't fix the problem. I've had to postpone so many dreams. I once wanted to travel, to see the world beyond the city limits. Now, I can barely afford a weekend away from my apartment. I dreamed of going back to school, pursuing a degree that might lead to better opportunities, but tuition costs and living expenses make that impossible right now. I put off saving for a home, imagining instead a future where I'm trapped renting, moving from one overpriced lease to another. Even simple pleasures, like upgrading my laptop or investing in a hobby, feel like distant luxuries. There are days when the hopelessness creeps in, whispering that maybe I'll never catch up, that I'm doomed to this cycle. But then, something in me resists. I remind myself why I'm fighting, for a future where I don't have to choose between essentials, where I can breathe without that tight anxiety squeezing my chest. I imagine a day when I can look back and say, I made it through. The economic environment isn't just numbers and charts, it's the air I breathe, the invisible force shaping every moment. It has taught me resilience, but also how fragile hope can be. I don't have all the answers. I don't have a magic fix. But this is my reality, laid bare, the everyday struggle of living in a world where expenses outpace income, and dreams are often on hold. And if sharing this helps even one person feel less alone, maybe that's a small victory in itself. I never thought money would feel like a weight tied around my neck, dragging me down in a way that never quite lets me breathe. But here I am, 27 years old, caught in this relentless tug-of-war with my finances, where no matter how hard I pull, the other side just pulls harder. It's like the world's economic gears are grinding faster and faster, and I'm just trying not to get crushed beneath them. Every morning, I wake up and do this mental checklist: rent, groceries, bills, transportation. And almost always, the numbers add up to more than what I made last month. Inflation doesn't care about my paycheck, it just keeps climbing. The rent in my neighborhood has jumped again, like clockwork, every 6 months or so, and utilities have spiked. Even the price of basic food items feels like a personal assault. Buying fresh fruits or meat has become a luxury. I find myself staring at the shelves, calculating in my head whether I can afford the chicken or if I should settle for the cheaper, less nutritious option. It's exhausting. I work full-time at a customer service job. It's not glamorous, and the pay barely covers the essentials. Overtime is rare, and bonuses? Forget about it. I've asked for raises, but it's always the same answer: not right now, the company's tight on budget. I get it, they're struggling too, but that doesn't make my electric bill any easier to pay. It's a constant reminder that no matter how much effort I put in, the system is designed so the expenses creep up faster than my income can keep pace. The days blur into one another. I wake up early, sometimes before dawn, and drag myself out of bed just to keep up. I skip meals sometimes, not because I'm starving, but because I'm rationing food to make it last longer. I avoid social outings. Friends invite me to grab a drink or go to a movie, but I always have to say no. There's this quiet shame that comes with turning down plans, not because I don't want to go, but because I simply can't afford it. I hate feeling isolated, but the alternative is deeper debt or worse, losing my apartment. Debt is a word I think about every day. The credit card balances, the small loans I took to cover emergencies, the medical bills from a time I had no choice but to see a doctor, all of it piles up like a mountain I'm too tired to climb. I pay minimums and watch interest grow, feeling powerless to stop the avalanche. The financial system feels like a trap, with every attempt to escape pushing me further in. Sometimes at night, when everything is quiet, I feel overwhelmed by this suffocating pressure. The stress invades my dreams, turning sleep into a restless negotiation with my worries. I wake up with a knot in my stomach, wondering how I'll scrape together rent or fix my car if it breaks down. The fear of what if hovers constantly. But amidst all this, I still hold on to my dreams, even if I've had to push them aside. I wanted to go back to school and finish my degree, to build a career that would let me breathe a little easier. I dreamt of traveling, seeing new places, and having the freedom to explore without counting every cent. I pictured a future where money wasn't this looming shadow but a tool to build a life I loved. For now, those dreams feel distant, like stars just out of reach. I postponed the classes, paused the travel plans, and delayed any big decisions. I try to remind myself that this isn't permanent, but sometimes it's hard not to feel like I'm stuck in a holding pattern. The pressure makes it difficult to see a clear path forward. To cope, I've started small rituals, things that cost little but give me some semblance of control. Journaling, for example, helps me lay out my fears and hopes on paper, making them a little less overwhelming. I walk in the park when I can, breathing fresh air and imagining a better future. I lean on a small group of friends who understand without judgment, which means the world on days when everything feels too heavy. I'm learning to be kinder to myself. This isn't a failure. It's a hard, grinding reality that many of us face, and it's okay to struggle. I try to celebrate small victories, a paid bill, a day without skipping meals, a moment of peace. These feel like lifelines. Most days, I still feel trapped, caught in a system that doesn't seem to bend for people like me. But I hold on to hope. I'm not giving up, even when it's hard to see the way out. Someday, I want to look back and say I survived this, that I found a way through the storm. Until then, I keep taking it day by day, one breath at a time, holding on to the fragile but fierce spark of hope that keeps me moving forward. Because despite everything, I deserve to dream, and maybe, just maybe, those dreams will come true. I never thought money would feel like a chain wrapped tightly around my ankles, dragging me down with every step I try to take forward. But here I am, in my late 20s, caught in this relentless cycle where bills pile up, rent climbs, groceries cost more, and my paycheck feels like it's shrinking no matter how many hours I put in. It's like living in a pressure cooker that never lets off steam. Every day, the weight of financial stress presses on my chest, making it hard to breathe, hard to imagine a future that isn't just about surviving. I grew up hearing that if I worked hard, I'd get ahead, that education and effort would open doors. I believed it, truly. I finished college, got a decent job, and thought I was on the right path. But the reality hit fast and hard. The rent on my tiny apartment in the city keeps increasing, and it takes up almost half my monthly income. Utilities, internet, transportation, everything seems to have an extra zero added to it now. And while I see the prices go up, my paycheck barely budges. I feel like I'm running a treadmill that keeps speeding up, and no matter how fast I move, I'm stuck in the same place, or worse, slipping backward. Every decision I make feels like a compromise, a sacrifice. Should I buy groceries this week, or can I stretch the leftovers one more day? Should I pay the credit card minimum this month, or try to cover the overdue phone bill? The mental load of juggling these small but constant financial puzzles wears me out. Sometimes I catch myself holding back from texting a friend, worried about data charges. Or declining invitations to go out because I can't really afford it. It feels isolating, like I'm shrinking my world to fit inside a budget that never quite fits. I want to be honest about how this all affects me emotionally. There's a constant hum of anxiety beneath the surface, like a radio playing softly but non-stop. It creeps into moments that should feel light. When I'm with family or friends, there's always a part of my brain running calculations in the background. Can I afford to spend more time off work next week? What if something unexpected breaks down? What if I get sick and can't cover the deductible? The stress sometimes turns into a dull ache in my chest or restless nights where I stare at the ceiling, mind racing with worst-case scenarios. I've had to postpone dreams that once felt vibrant and within reach. Traveling abroad, something I always wanted to do to see new cultures and feel alive in a way that only travel can bring, it feels like a luxury I can't afford, maybe ever. I think about buying a car someday, but with the cost of insurance and maintenance, it's a fantasy. Even the idea of moving to a bigger place or saving for my own home feels like a distant mirage, always just out of reach. I catch myself daydreaming about what life might be like without this constant financial pressure, waking up without dread, having the freedom to say yes to opportunities, and maybe even feeling proud of what I built. Coping with this pressure is a mix of small survival tactics and deeper emotional work. I keep a strict budget, tracking every penny, which sometimes helps me feel a little more control. I've learned to cook simple meals that stretch ingredients, and I rely on public transportation even when it's inconvenient. But more than practical strategies, I try to remind myself I'm not alone in this. Many people my age feel stuck, and that shared struggle, while not comforting in the moment, at least shows me this isn't a personal failure. I talk to close friends about my worries, even if it's scary to admit how tight things really are. Those conversations are lifelines. I also cling to hope, fragile but persistent. I dream of a time when I can build savings, when I can finally say yes to things without guilt or hesitation. I imagine a future where my work feels rewarding not just because it pays the bills, but because it feeds my soul. I want to believe that one day the system that feels so trapping now will bend or break enough for me to step through a door into something better. For now, I hold on to the small victories, making rent on time, paying off a little bit of debt, treating myself to a coffee on a rare occasion. It's not easy to live with this pressure every day, and some days I feel crushed by it. But sharing this story feels like peeling back a layer of fear and shame. Because the truth is, I'm trying. And even if the system isn't set up for people like me to thrive easily, I'm here, fighting to carve out a life that feels a little less heavy, a little more hopeful. That fight, as exhausting as it is still worth it. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I never thought I'd be here, waking up every day to a sense of sinking, like I'm caught in quicksand that only pulls harder with every step. I'm 26, working full-time, trying to hold myself together, but the financial pressure feels like a constant weight pressing down on my chest. It's not just about money, it's about how this endless cycle of bills, rent, groceries, and unexpected expenses keeps shrinking my space to breathe, to dream, to live. When I graduated college, I was hopeful. I had plans, like so many do. A decent job lined up, a small savings cushion, and a vision of paying off my student loans while maybe, someday, buying a little apartment of my own. But life had other ideas. Inflation kicked in harder than anyone expected, rent jumped again, and every time my paycheck came, it somehow felt thinner than the month before. Even though my income has technically grown a bit over the years, it hasn't kept up with the skyrocketing costs of just existing. The weirdest part is how this financial squeeze leaks into every single decision I make. Some days I plan meals around what's on sale rather than what I want to eat. I've become hyper-aware of every utility bill, wondering if turning the heat down by 1 degree will actually make a difference or just make me miserable. I've canceled gym memberships, cut back on hobbies, stopped seeing friends as often, all because money is tighter than ever. And it's exhausting. There's this pervasive feeling of being trapped, like the system is designed to keep me here, juggling expenses that grow faster than my income, and no matter how hard I try, I'm running just to stay in place. I've heard people talk about the rat race, but this feels different, more personal and more relentless. I'm not competing to get ahead, I'm struggling just not to fall behind. Sometimes it feels like no one really sees it, the mental toll, the constant worry, the shame that creeps in when I can't pay for things others take for granted. The emotional weight is crushing. I lie awake some nights, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, thinking about how a car repair could ruin my month or how I'm 2 paychecks away from not making rent. I try not to talk about it much because I don't want to be seen as weak or like a failure, but the truth is, I feel like both. I cope the best I can. I find little pockets of joy, morning coffee made at home instead of bought out, weekend walks in the park, texting friends when I can't meet up. I've learned to be creative with budgets and to celebrate small wins, like saving $5 or resisting the urge to splurge on takeout. Those little victories help me hold on to some hope. Speaking of hope, the dreams I had, oh, how they've had to be put on hold. I used to think I'd travel, see the world, maybe even start my own business someday. I pictured buying a car that wasn't a decade old or having a comfortable space to call my own, with room for plants and maybe a pet. Now, those dreams feel distant, almost like they belong to a different life I used to have. Still, I try to remind myself that I'm doing the best I can. I hold on to the idea that this phase isn't permanent, even when the present feels like a cage. I'm learning that surviving isn't just about making ends meet, it's about finding strength in vulnerability, about asking for help when I need it, and about believing, against the odds, that better days can come. So, here I am, honest and vulnerable, sharing what so many don't see, the quiet fight behind the paycheck, the daily choices shaped by fear and hope, and the deep desire for a future where money doesn't dictate every moment. It's hard. It's painful. But I keep going. Because what other choice do I have? And maybe, just maybe, that's enough for now. I never thought I'd find myself stuck in this place, caught in a loop where no matter how hard I push, I'm barely moving forward. It's like being trapped underwater, the pressure crushing from all sides, but instead of a single moment of panic, it's a slow, suffocating drip every day. The economic weight hangs over me like a dark cloud, and some days, I just don't know how much longer I can keep breathing under it. I'm 27 now. It feels strange to say that out loud sometimes, because I imagined my 20s looking very different. Back when I was younger, I dreamed big, traveling, starting my own business, maybe even owning a little home with a garden. Simple things, really. But now, it feels like those dreams are on hold indefinitely, tucked away in some drawer labeled "maybe someday." The reality is this: my paycheck barely stretches far enough to cover rent, utilities, groceries, and those endless surprise expenses that always seem to pop up. And with inflation climbing faster than my income, it feels like the goalpost keeps moving further away. Each morning I wake up to the same dread, the nagging question: how am I going to make this month work? I check my bank account, and my stomach tightens. Bills are due, rent's looming, and I need to fill the fridge. I'm not living extravagantly, I don't eat out, I don't buy clothes I don't need, and I definitely don't have the luxury of spontaneous nights out with friends. Every purchase feels calculated, almost clinical. I've memorized the prices of basic things: a loaf of bread, a dozen eggs, a gallon of milk. I watch prices climb and I cringe. Sometimes, I find myself standing in the store aisle, debating if I can justify buying a slightly nicer meal or if I should settle for the cheapest option that I know won't satisfy me. It's exhausting, this constant mental math. How many days of meals does this paycheck cover? Can I afford the electricity if I use the heater a little more this month? Will I need to skip the bus and walk, even if it means getting soaked in rain or arriving late? The stress never really leaves me, it's a low hum beneath everything I do. I catch myself holding back from calling friends or family, worried about sounding like a burden or sounding like I'm complaining. It's lonely, in a way, feeling like you're in a battle everyone else seems to have figured out. Sometimes, I look back at my early 20s and wonder how I got here so quickly. I graduated college with a degree I worked hard for, hopeful about what the future might bring. But entry-level jobs pay barely enough to cover rent in the city, let alone save for anything meaningful. My first job was a shock. I thought I'd at least be able to put some money aside, maybe pay off a little student debt faster. Instead, I found myself juggling part-time gigs just to stay afloat. I worked nights, weekends, anything to keep the lights on. But even with multiple jobs, the bills piled up. It felt like running on a treadmill set too fast. My family tries to help where they can, but they have their own struggles, and I hate feeling like I'm imposing. I remember a few months ago, when my car broke down unexpectedly. I didn't have the money to fix it right away, so I took the bus everywhere, doubling my commute time. I tried to hide the frustration when I talked to my parents, but they could see it. They offered to help with the repairs, but I turned them down because I didn't want to be a financial strain. Pride and fear of dependency make this whole ordeal harder to bear. The emotional toll is heavy. I can't ignore how this constant financial pressure chips away at my confidence and sense of self-worth. It's not just about money, it's about feeling trapped in a system that feels rigged. I work hard, I play by the rules, but somehow, that's not enough. It's like I'm swimming against a current that's getting stronger by the day, pulling me under just when I think I'm gaining ground. Some nights, the anxiety keeps me awake. I lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining what life could be if money wasn't the barrier. I think about going back to school to get a better qualification, but the cost and time commitment are terrifying. What if I add more debt on top of the mountain I'm already climbing? I dream about traveling, seeing new places and meeting new people, but even a short trip seems impossible to budget for. The world feels so big, but I'm stuck in this small, confining space defined by dollar signs and due dates. To cope, I've learned to celebrate small victories. When I manage to save a few dollars after a tough month, it feels like a quiet triumph. When I find a sale on something I need, I feel a little spark of hope. I remind myself that I'm doing my best, even when the odds feel stacked against me. I've started journaling, pouring my frustrations and hopes onto paper. It's a way to hold on to my humanity amidst the chaos. Sometimes, I reach out to friends who understand this struggle, and those moments of connection remind me I'm not alone. I'm learning that vulnerability is strength, not weakness. It's okay to admit that things are hard and that I'm scared. I'm more than my paycheck or my debt. I'm someone with dreams that matter, even if they're delayed. I hope for a day when I can breathe easier, when money doesn't dictate every choice I make. A day when I can finally pursue those dreams without hesitation or guilt. But for now, I keep moving forward, even if the steps are slow and uncertain. Because giving up isn't an option, I have too much life left to live, and even if the system feels designed to hold me down, I'm determined to find my way through it, one small step at a time. This is my truth, the struggle behind the scenes that most people don't see. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that financial pressure doesn't just strain the wallet, it wears down the spirit. But I'm still here. Still trying. Still hoping. I never imagined that managing money would feel like trying to catch the wind, always slipping through my fingers no matter how tightly I try to hold on. I'm 26 now, working a steady job, but steady doesn't mean easy. It's more like treading water in a stormy sea that keeps pulling me under. The cost of living climbs higher every month, while my paycheck stays stubbornly the same. It's exhausting, and I'm tired, honestly. When I was a teenager, I dreamed big. I wanted to travel, to go back to school for something I truly cared about, maybe even start my own small business someday. I had that kind of youthful confidence that I could shape my future the way I wanted it. But now? Now it feels like the future is just a concept someone else gets to plan for. For me, it's all about surviving today without drowning in debt or panic. My mornings start with a familiar tension. Before I even get out of bed, my brain races through the bills I have to pay, the rent that's due next week, and the groceries I need to stretch until my next paycheck. Every expense feels like a challenge to my sanity. I check my bank app more times than I care to admit, hoping to see a bigger number but always met with disappointment. The balance teases me, just enough to cover the essentials but never enough to breathe. The economic environment feels like an invisible wall closing in on me from every side. Rent prices have shot up beyond what anyone my age should be paying, but moving isn't an option without doubling my commute or sacrificing safety. Utilities spike every winter, and even simple things like my phone bill and internet service feel like luxuries I can barely afford. When I shop for groceries, I'm calculating costs in my head like a mathematician under pressure, comparing brands, looking for sales, skipping items I once considered staples. Fresh vegetables sometimes lose out to canned or frozen, not because I don't want the best for my health, but because I'm trying to stretch every dollar. The pressure doesn't just end with money. It invades my mental space. I find myself waking up with a knot of anxiety in my stomach, that feeling of being trapped in a system I didn't sign up for. I see friends buying cars, moving into new apartments, or planning vacations, and I try not to let envy creep in. I remind myself that their circumstances might be different, but the ache of wanting more, of wanting to be free, is the same. It's hard to explain, but it's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. No matter how fast you run, the finish line never gets closer. Some days I try to cope by focusing on small joys, walking in the park, cooking a meal from scratch, or binge-watching a favorite show. Those moments offer a fragile peace, a brief respite from the relentless stress. I also lean heavily on my few close friends who understand without judgment. We talk openly about money, about sacrifices, about dreams that have been put on hold. It helps to know I'm not alone, but it doesn't erase the feeling of being stuck. Speaking of sacrifices, I've had to postpone so many dreams. Going back to school is the biggest one. I wanted to study psychology, to understand myself better and maybe help others someday. But tuition is a luxury I can't afford right now, and with my current job barely covering rent and bills, it feels irresponsible to take on more debt. Even simple pleasures like dining out, attending concerts, or buying new clothes have become rare treats instead of regular parts of life. Sometimes I catch myself imagining what life would be like if money wasn't a constant worry. Would I feel lighter, freer? Would I take risks without the fear of crashing? The truth is, I don't know if I'd even recognize that version of myself anymore. Financial pressure has shaped so much of who I am, my decisions, my mood, even my relationships. It's like a shadow that follows me everywhere, a reminder that stability is something I'm still chasing. I'm scared, too. Scared that this pressure will never ease, that I'll be locked in this cycle for years to come. Scared that the system is designed to keep people like me in place, to keep us working harder just to maintain a basic standard of living without ever getting ahead. It's a bitter pill to swallow, especially when I want to believe that hard work should lead to progress. Yet, despite all this, I hold on to hope. Hope that things will get better, that policies will change, that I'll find a way to break free. I remind myself that small steps count. Maybe it's learning a new skill online, building an emergency fund no matter how slowly, or networking for better job opportunities. These small acts feel like planting seeds in rocky soil, uncertain if they'll grow but necessary to keep trying. This story isn't unique. I know there are so many others my age feeling the same grind, caught in a system where expenses outpace income, dreams are delayed, and every day is a balancing act. But I'm trying to be honest with myself about what that means, both the hard truths and the flickers of hope. If you're reading this and feeling trapped too, I want you to know you're not alone. It's okay to feel overwhelmed, scared, or frustrated. It's okay to admit that the system isn't fair. But it's also okay to keep dreaming, to keep fighting for a better tomorrow. Because even when the wind feels impossible to catch, sometimes it just needs a little patience before it changes direction. For now, I'll keep moving forward, one day at a time, one careful decision at a time, hoping that someday soon, the storm will calm enough for me to breathe again, and maybe even fly. It's 7:30 a.m. and my phone buzzes beside my bed, dragging me out of a dream I barely remember. The sun's barely up, but my mind is already racing: bills, rent, groceries, the car that needs another repair. Even before I open my eyes, the weight presses down like a thick blanket I can't throw off. It's the same feeling I've had every morning for the past few years, a slow, grinding anxiety that never really goes away. I'm 27 now, and it feels like I've been drowning in financial pressure for as long as I can remember. The world around me is moving fast, jobs demanding more hours for stagnant pay, prices climbing higher and higher, but my paycheck stays pretty much the same. Or, when it does increase, it's just a few dollars that get swallowed up the moment I turn around. Every month is a tightrope walk, trying to balance rent, utilities, food, transportation, and the endless small emergencies life throws at me. Sometimes I lie awake at night wondering how people manage to build something, save money, buy a home, even take a vacation, while I'm stuck just trying to survive. I work in retail, a job I took right out of college because it was the only thing hiring. It's not what I dreamed of doing. I used to imagine a career that let me be creative, that gave me purpose and growth. Instead, I scan barcodes, deal with impatient customers, and clock out tired and sore. The pay is barely enough to cover rent and utilities, let alone the little things that make life worth living, like eating out, seeing friends, or saving for the future. Each paycheck feels like a small victory, but also a cruel reminder of how far I am from financial freedom. One of the hardest parts is feeling trapped in a system that seems designed to keep me on the edge. Every expense rises, rent goes up, groceries cost more, even my phone bill creeps higher, while my income barely budges. It's like running on a treadmill set to a faster and faster pace, but no matter how hard I run, I'm stuck in the same spot. I can't stop the treadmill, I can't slow it down, and I can't jump off without falling hard. I try to be careful, to budget and plan, but there's only so much control I have. When my car broke down last month, I had to dip into what little I'd saved for emergencies. It felt like the ground shifted beneath me, and I was scrambling to find a new footing. I made the choice to take the bus for a few weeks, longer rides, less convenience, just so I could cover the repair bill. That was a hard decision because I rely on that car to get to work on time. But the alternative was worse, missing shifts and losing even more income. Socially, it's isolating. I want to say yes when friends invite me out, but I'm often saying no instead. Dinner out? I can't afford it. Concert tickets? Out of the question. Weekend trips? A distant dream. It feels like everyone else is moving forward, building memories, while I'm stuck on the sidelines, watching my hopes slowly fade away. Sometimes I feel ashamed or like I'm failing somehow, but deep down I know this isn't a personal failure. It's a system that's tilted against people like me, where opportunity and security feel reserved for those born with more luck or privilege. Despite all this, I try to find ways to cope. I've started cooking at home more, turning it into a small creative outlet instead of a chore. I've also picked up secondhand books and movies to keep my mind engaged without spending money. On the hardest days, I reach out to a close friend or two, people who understand and don't judge. Sometimes just voicing the struggle helps, even if it doesn't fix anything. At night, when the apartment is quiet and my body aches from the day's work, I let myself dream. I think about moving somewhere cheaper, about going back to school and finally getting a degree that could open new doors. I imagine a life where money isn't the first thing on my mind, where I can afford to plan for the future instead of just surviving the present. But those dreams always come with a bitter edge, because I know they require resources I don't have, and time I'm running out of. The hardest truth is that I'm tired. Tired of stretching every dollar, tired of feeling like I'm constantly behind, tired of the anxiety that never lets up. I want to believe things will get better, that if I keep working, keep hoping, the system will shift, or I'll find a break. But the fear of being stuck forever is real, and it shadows every decision I make. Still, I keep moving forward. Because what else can I do? I keep searching for small victories, for moments of peace, for hope that the future will hold something brighter. And maybe, just maybe, sharing this story will help someone else understand that beneath the numbers and the struggles, there's a person, scared, tired, but still holding on. That's my life right now, a constant balancing act, a daily fight against a rising tide of expenses and a stubbornly low income, and a quiet hope that someday, somehow, I'll break free. It's strange how money shapes your life in ways you never expect. I'm 26 now, and since I graduated college, it feels like every step forward financially is met with 2 steps back. I work a decent job, nothing glamorous, just a steady paycheck, but no matter how hard I try to keep up, the bills keep piling up, faster than I can manage. It's like I'm running on a treadmill that speeds up every month, and I'm just barely holding on. I remember when I first moved into my apartment, it felt like a tiny victory. Finally out on my own, making my own decisions. I imagined nights spent decorating the space, having friends over without worrying about noise complaints, or weekends saving up for a vacation. But reality hit fast. Rent shot up. Utilities climbed. Groceries cost more than they did when I was a kid. Then there's student loans, car insurance, phone bills, and unexpected expenses, like my old laptop finally giving out or the doctor visit last winter when I caught the flu. The thing is, my income has barely budged. A small raise here and there doesn't keep pace with inflation, and with the economy doing whatever it's doing, it's hard to even think about asking for more. Some days, I wake up feeling like I'm already behind. I check my bank account, then my credit card balance, and all I see are numbers that don't add up. I'm not drowning, but I'm definitely treading water, just hoping to keep my head above the surface. That feeling of being trapped isn't just about money, it's about freedom. I see my friends buying homes, traveling, investing in their futures, and I wonder when or if I'll ever get there. Making choices becomes a kind of daily negotiation with yourself. Do I buy groceries this week or put that money toward paying off a credit card? Can I skip the doctor's appointment and hope it's nothing serious? Do I really need that coffee or can I make it at home? Simple things, but when you're living paycheck to paycheck, those small decisions weigh heavy. Sometimes it feels like every dollar spent is a dollar not saved for a future I can't quite envision. There's a deep emotional toll too. I try not to let it show, but anxiety creeps in more often than I like. At night, I lie awake thinking about unexpected expenses that could hit. What if my car breaks down? What if the heating bill spikes this winter? It's exhausting. It's not just about wanting more money, it's about the stress of constant uncertainty. I feel guilty when I treat myself like I'm being irresponsible, even if it's something small, like a night out with friends or a book I wanted. Happiness starts to feel like a luxury, something reserved for people with financial breathing room. I've had to postpone dreams I once held dear. I always wanted to travel, see different parts of the world, experience new cultures. But with money tight, that seems like an impossible dream for now. Even saving for a down payment on a house feels like a joke. I tell myself it's temporary, that I'm building a foundation, but some days that foundation feels more like quicksand. Coping with all this isn't easy. I try to remind myself of what I do have: a steady job, health, supportive friends, and family. I focus on small victories, paying off a little bit of debt, finding a discount on groceries, managing to cook meals at home instead of ordering takeout. I've learned to lean into gratitude where I can, though it doesn't erase the financial pressure. I talk about it with close friends sometimes, and I'm surprised how many are in the same boat. We share tips, commiserate, and sometimes just vent. It helps to know I'm not alone, but it's also a little heartbreaking that so many of us are trapped in this cycle. The system feels rigged, expenses rising faster than wages, jobs that don't pay enough, costs of living that seem to climb endlessly. It's like the deck is stacked against us. Still, I hold on to hope. I'm trying to educate myself about money, budgeting, and investing, even if it feels like I'm a step behind. I dream of the day when I don't have to think twice before spending, when I can invest in experiences instead of just survival. Maybe I'll go back to school someday or start a side hustle that brings in extra income. Maybe I'll find a job that pays better or move to a city with a lower cost of living. The future feels uncertain, but I want to believe it can be better. For now, I'm here, doing my best to navigate this tangled web of bills, responsibilities, and hopes. The pressure is real and sometimes overwhelming, but I'm not giving up. I remind myself every day that this isn't my final story. There's more to life than surviving, even if surviving feels like a full-time job right now. One day, I hope to look back and see this time as the struggle that made me stronger, not the cage that held me back. I never imagined that being in my mid-20s would feel like walking on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, no matter how hard I run. Every month, the bills pile up faster than I can pay them, and the tiny raise at work barely scratches the surface. It's like I'm stuck in this invisible trap where the cost of living climbs higher every day, but my paycheck stays almost the same, or worse, feels like it shrinks. And that feeling, the creeping dread of being perpetually behind, gnaws at me in ways I didn't expect. I grew up thinking that if I worked hard enough, I'd be fine. That was the story everyone told us, right? Work hard, get a decent job, build a life. But now, sitting here in my small, cramped apartment, I realize that story left out a crucial chapter: how the world outside changes faster than you can adapt. Rent keeps going up, groceries cost more, gas prices jump, and suddenly even healthcare feels like a luxury. I watch friends move away to cities where opportunities seem bigger, or switch jobs to get better pay, but those options feel like luxuries I don't have. The reality is this: every dollar I earn disappears into a sea of bills before I even get a chance to breathe. Every morning starts with this sinking feeling. I wake up, check my bank account, and calculate exactly how much I can afford that day, whether it's the cost of my commute or a coffee to keep me going. Sometimes, I skip meals because food costs more than I thought, and I'm waiting for payday like it's some kind of lifeline. Even the idea of saving feels like a cruel joke. How do you save when the rent takes half your income, and unexpected expenses pop up like clockwork? Last month, my phone broke, and I had to choose between paying a late bill or getting it fixed. I ended up borrowing from a friend, which just added this layer of stress that I hate to carry. The emotional weight of it all is exhausting. There are nights when I lie awake, heart pounding, wondering if I'll ever catch up or if I'm destined to stay in this cycle forever. I see others around me buying homes, going on vacations, starting families. And here I am, counting every penny, postponing doctor visits, and turning down invitations because I can't afford the subway fare. It's isolating, this kind of stress. It makes me feel invisible, like I'm failing in a way that no one really talks about. Sometimes, I'm overwhelmed by guilt, like I'm letting my family down, even though they're barely making ends meet themselves. I've tried to cope in different ways. I started tracking every expense religiously, hoping that if I could just get a handle on the numbers, I'd feel more in control. But the truth is, the numbers never add up in my favor. I've cut back on everything: streaming services, nights out, even small comforts like a new book or a warm meal out. I even took a second job for a while, but that left me so drained I was barely functioning. What's the point of earning more if you lose yourself in the process? Lately, I find small moments of peace in unexpected places: listening to podcasts on the bus, writing down dreams I hope to one day chase, or talking to a friend who understands without judgment. Speaking of dreams, I've had to put so many on hold. I once dreamed of traveling, exploring new countries, learning new languages, maybe even going back to school for something I'm passionate about. Those dreams now feel like distant echoes, luxuries I can't justify. Even thinking about buying a car or moving to a better neighborhood feels like wishing for something impossible. But deep down, I haven't let go completely. I keep those dreams alive in quiet moments, like a fragile flame I guard fiercely. Because if I lose hope, then what do I have? What's hardest is the feeling that the system itself is stacked against people like me. It's not just about personal choices or effort. It's about wages not keeping pace with inflation, about a housing market that feels designed to exclude, about social safety nets that feel patchy and unreliable. Sometimes, I feel angry that the rules were written without people like me in mind, angry that we're expected to just manage or try harder when the deck is so clearly stacked. But that anger often turns to exhaustion, because fighting every day wears you down. Still, I try to remind myself that this isn't the whole story. That there are better days ahead, even if they feel impossibly far away. I look for small wins: getting through the month without missing a payment, finally replacing a broken appliance, reconnecting with an old friend who understands the struggle. I lean on those moments, because they remind me I'm still here, still fighting, still hoping. So this is my truth: living with financial pressure isn't just about numbers. It's about feeling trapped in a system where the gap between income and expenses feels like a chasm that won't close. It's about the emotional toll of constant worry, the postponed dreams, the sacrifices you make just to keep going. But it's also about resilience, the quiet strength of continuing to move forward, even when the path feels impossible. And maybe, one day, those small steps will add up to something bigger. Until then, I keep running on this treadmill, holding on to hope as best I can. I never imagined money would feel like this, like a weight that never lifts, a shadow that follows me everywhere, even in moments when I try to forget it exists. I'm in my late 20s, working full-time, doing everything right by the usual standards: steady job, renting an apartment, trying to save a little bit here and there. But somehow, the bills just keep piling up faster than my paycheck grows, and the pressure never eases. Every month feels like I'm treading water in a storm, just barely keeping my head above the surface. I wake up each morning with this gnawing sense of dread, even before I check my bank account. It's almost automatic now: the numbers stare back at me, reminding me how tight everything is. Rent alone takes more than half my income. Then there's groceries, utilities, phone bills, transportation. And those random expenses that always seem to sneak up. My phone screen cracked last month, and I had to decide between fixing it right away or eating less for a week. I fixed it. Because how can I work if I can't call anyone? But it meant stretching my food budget to the limit, and I felt it in my bones by the end of that week. The thing is, this isn't just about numbers. It's about how these numbers make me feel: small, trapped, like I'm stuck in a system that's moving in the wrong direction. Inflation climbs steadily, but my wage barely shifts. I hear stories about living your best life and financial independence, but those feel like fairy tales from another world. When expenses grow faster than income, every choice feels like a sacrifice. Do I pay for the doctor's appointment I've been putting off, or do I cover the electricity bill? Do I try to replace my worn-out shoes or hope they last another season? Sometimes I lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, overwhelmed by this cycle I can't seem to break. It's exhausting, mentally and physically. The anxiety gnaws at me, even when I'm doing everything right. I watch friends move into nicer apartments, travel, or start investing in things I only read about online. I don't resent them, I'm genuinely happy for them, but I can't help feeling left behind, like I'm watching life pass me by through a foggy window. I want those things too. A little financial breathing room, a trip to somewhere warm, a chance to build something for myself without feeling constantly scared of what might go wrong. Coping with this pressure means learning to live with constant compromises. I've stopped eating out entirely. I make meals from scratch, which saves money but sometimes feels isolating when everyone else is out enjoying themselves. I track every dollar, budgeting obsessively because losing control over money feels like losing control over my life. Sometimes I feel guilty for small indulgences, buying a coffee or a new book, even though they're tiny, brief comforts in a day full of stress. There's a stubborn hope inside me, though, even if it feels fragile. I dream of a future where I'm not just surviving but thriving. A future where I'm not constantly counting every cent but can invest in my own growth, health, and happiness. I want to feel secure enough to think about retirement or buying a home someday, not just as a distant fantasy, but as a real possibility. I want to break free from this treadmill where expenses always chase me down no matter how fast I run. But to get there, I know it'll take more than just me being careful or working harder. The system feels rigged in a way that's hard to fight alone. Wages are stagnant, costs soar, and opportunities feel out of reach. I hold on to the belief that change is possible, policy reforms, fairer wages, affordable housing, but it's frustrating how slow and distant those solutions seem. So for now, I keep going, day by day, making tough choices and holding on to my small victories. I celebrate the months when I manage to save a little. I cling to the moments of joy with friends or quiet nights reading a book, even if it's secondhand. I remind myself that this pressure doesn't define me, even when it feels overwhelming. And I keep dreaming, even if those dreams have to wait a little longer. I never thought I'd feel so stuck at 27. Not like this, caught in this endless loop where every month feels like a fresh battle just to keep my head above water. When I was a kid, I imagined I'd be somewhere else by now. Not rich or famous, but at least comfortable. Able to afford things without that gnawing anxiety in my chest, able to plan for more than just the next paycheck. But here I am, and every day feels like a tightrope walk over a pit that's growing wider and deeper. The economic environment now? It's like it's designed to squeeze you dry. Prices go up, and your income barely budges. Rent, groceries, utilities, everything's climbing faster than I can keep up. I live in a small apartment in the city, not by choice but necessity. A shoebox that eats half my paycheck before I even see the rest. I remember when the rent increased again this year, like clockwork, every 6 months it creeps up, and I just stared at the notice, a wave of dread washing over me. There's no way to avoid it. No way to say no. Just pay or lose your roof. That's the kind of system we live in, where you're either sinking or scrambling to hold your ground. My job doesn't pay much. I'm grateful to have it, but it barely covers the basics. And don't get me started on healthcare or transportation. I take the bus because owning a car would be a luxury I can't afford. Every broken subway train or delayed bus adds to my stress, knowing that getting to work late might cost me a warning or worse. Sometimes, I think about how different things might be if I'd grown up in a wealthier family. Would money still feel like this heavy chain around my ankle, dragging me down every time I try to move forward? The hardest part is that this pressure isn't just a number in my bank account, it invades my mind, my emotions. There's a constant undercurrent of worry that colors everything I do. It's exhausting. Some days, I can't even enjoy a meal without thinking about how much it cost, how I could have saved those few dollars, how that money might have helped pay an upcoming bill. I catch myself avoiding phone calls because I'm afraid it might be another bill collector, or a reminder of some payment overdue. Anxiety wraps around me like a thick blanket I can't shake off. I've had to make choices that sting, ones that I never imagined I'd make this early in life. Like postponing plans to go back to school, which was always a dream. I wanted to get a degree in something I love, something that could open doors to a better career. But the tuition fees, the time off work, the cost of textbooks, it all feels impossible now. Instead, I keep picking up side gigs when I can, juggling hours that stretch me thin, just to make ends meet. It's a grind, and it steals time and energy from things I used to enjoy. Even the little things feel like a luxury. A night out with friends, a new book, or a weekend trip, all those moments that people take for granted. I watch my friends share stories about vacations or new gadgets, and a part of me wants to celebrate with them, but there's also that whisper inside, you can't afford it. So I smile and nod, but inside, I'm quietly shrinking, retreating from a world that seems just out of reach. What keeps me going, though, is hope, fragile and flickering but alive. I cling to the belief that this isn't all there is. That one day, maybe soon, the economy will stabilize, wages will rise, or I'll find a way to break free. I dream of owning a place that's truly mine, where I don't have to fear the next rent increase. I imagine waking up without the weight of bills pressing down on me, without that gnawing sense of insufficiency. I try to cope by reminding myself of small victories. That I paid all my bills on time this month. That I managed to save a little bit, even if it's just $20. I celebrate those quiet wins because they're rare and hard-earned. And when the days get too dark, I let myself cry, let the frustration out instead of bottling it up. Talking about it helps, whether it's with a friend who listens without judgment or writing down these feelings in a journal. It makes the load a little lighter. Sometimes, I feel invisible in this system. Like I'm just a number on a ledger somewhere, a line item in someone else's profit margin. But then I remind myself that my story matters. That I'm more than my paycheck or my debts. I'm a person with dreams, with feelings, with a life that deserves more than just surviving. And maybe that's the hardest truth of all, living in a world that feels rigged, while still daring to hope for something better. So here I am, still fighting, still hoping. I don't have it all figured out, and I'm scared about what tomorrow might bring. But I'm still trying to find my way through this, day by day, holding on to that flicker of hope that one day, I'll look back and know I didn't just survive, I lived. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.